Welcome to EJB Talks, Rutgers Bloustein School experts in policy, planning, and health, where we talk with our faculty and staff experts, as well as students, about how the fields of public policy, urban planning, public health, health administration, and public and urban informatics affect your lives. Welcome to EJB Talks. I'm Stuart Shapiro, the Dean of the Bloustein School, and the purpose of this podcast is to highlight the work my colleagues and our alumni in the fields of planning, policy, and health are doing to make the world a better place. This is the final episode of our 11th season of EJB Talks, and we have a very special episode today. I'm speaking with my colleague, Professor David Listokin, from our world-ranked urban planning program, and one of my predecessors, Dean Jim Hughes. Jim and David have written, along with former Rutgers Chancellor Dick Edwards, a new book on the history of Rutgers called Rutgers Then and Now. Jim and Dave, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So let me start by asking what led the two of you and Dick to decide to write this book.
Well, we can actually go back almost 3/4 of a century to get one of the germs that ultimately led to this book and to the Bloustein School today. In 1946, the then College of Engineering hired Edward B. Wilkins as a professor of planning in the college. At the same time, he was also the campus planner and the director of the Middlesex County Planning Board. And so he was involved in all the campus planning for really 3 decades after World War II and created the planning program within the school College of Engineering. And I was his student from 1961 to 1965 as an undergraduate. And since there were only 3 planning engineers in the class, I had a lot of attention from him. And I'd spend many hours in his office on the 3rd floor of today's Murray Hall. And he would inform me about all the decisions going on with campus planning and with individual buildings, their quirks and the like. And so we quote him extensively in the book. But ultimately, planning was moved from the College of Engineering to Livingston College. It became the big urban planning, urban studies program, and that eventually became the Bloustein School. So that's the long historical sweep. But from my side, it was certainly tremendous interest in the physical development of the campus, during my stay here. And then David and I had done extensive work on the transformation in New Brunswick, the revitalization of New Brunswick, and the like. And that had incorporated parts of the Rutgers development and transformation over time. So we became partners in that endeavor. And then I don't remember exactly how Dick got involved. I mean, we knew he was a photographer, and we had the germ of an idea of the 3 of us coming together and producing a pictorial history of the Rutgers College Avenue campus, which was really the nuclei of today's vast Rutgers empire, which has spread throughout the state. And eventually, as we went into it, it became more complex, more text, less photographs, although we have more than 500 images in the book. But it wasn't a careful, maybe we paralleled the development of Rutgers. It wasn't a carefully planned book from the beginning. We sort of got together and it sort of evolved over time. And we had certainly a great working relationship among the 3 of us. And we also had some superb help from some of our assistants, some superb editorial help. So it was sort of really a splendid coming together, and really we spent 5 years on this, and it was really one of our great experiences of being at Rutgers.
David, did you want to add anything about your involvement?
Paraphrase some what Jim said. I tell my planning students, a lot of life is not planned, and this has been a saga. I think it reflects as we were aging or getting more mature, however you express it. It's time
Like
to
fine wines, David.
uh, it's time to look back. I think it reflects our individual interests. I mean, Jim has an amazing encyclopedic knowledge of Rutgers, and that would be lost if it wouldn't be put down in something more formal. I have interest in history and historic preservation, and of course that intersects a lot with the campus and its evolution.
Gotcha. Can you tell me a little bit about your research process? Where I remember you guys talking about the archives you dug into and things like that. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, it started, and David can elaborate on this. It started with gaining access to the archives and learning the process of getting these books, these boxes of files out of the sub basements of Alexander Library. And you had to make appointments and the like, and you could only get two or three boxes at a time. Uh, and you would have to take out the images you wanted, and then a week later they would copy the images and send them to us and the like. But it started out, we were going to do the whole university. So it was a big, wide process. And then we ultimately narrowed it down to the College Avenue campus. Again, if that took us 5 years, the university would have taken us a quarter of a century really to go through it. Do you remember those days, David?
Oh, very fondly. It sort of brings you back to your student days of sort of being in the bowels of a library. And there's something special about archives because it's somewhat, you never know exactly what you're going to find, and there's missing stuff and what have you. The, the, uh, the, the archive librarians were just wonderful. And I can't thank them enough. But it, there's the expression "it takes a village to raise a child." There, there, there were so many roots we had to grow to bring this book together. I mean, archives very important. Rutgers institutional planning and operations. I mean, their knowledge, their files, their pictures. Really, really one of a kind. The New Brunswick Theological Seminary. I kind of hazily knew about them, and then all of a sudden you're speaking to them. Actually, there was one Emeritus professor there, John Coakley, invited me to his home in Highland Park, and he was very supportive. The Rutgers Prep, we went there, and believe it or not, one of their teachers is an archivist, and they've written like two books on Rutgers Prep, so we had some wonderful conversations. Touch base with, if there was anyone in New Jersey who knew something about this, we hope to touch base. New Jersey Historical Society, the New Brunswick Library, resources at Middlesex County, et cetera, et cetera. So um, it's a big topic, and you had to approach it from different vectors.
Yeah,
You
initially the thought of Dick was a uh, mainly a photo book, as there are a lot of then and now photo books out there for Manhattan, a number of cities, and the like. Uh, and it quickly morphed into really an analytical framework to examine the campus. And I think one of our achievements was uh, actually determining the 10 stages of campus development that the College Avenue campus went through. And again, College Avenue campus is not the best name for that campus because it originally was the men's college, Rutgers College, and the like. And it actually went across the river into what is today's Bush campus. Then it was the River Road campus, which was just an extension of the men's college across the river because they ran out of land. They needed space for a football stadium. They needed practice fields. They needed intramural fields and the like. But I think we did a pretty fantastic job in boiling it down to those 10 stages of development, to giving an actual framework of how the campus developed.
You both mentioned the pictures in the book, which are amazing. As I was looking through them, were there a couple of shots that just sort of took your breath away as when you got them and put them in the book?
Well, one of the experience, two or three of them were particular to me because of my personal experiences. One was the New Jersey Garden and the New Jersey Room on the original Alexander Library, and this was a magnificent brick patio of the state of New Jersey with a water feature with native 1954 native plantings around the patio, and it got wiped out when they put in the new addition to Alexander in the 1990s. The other one was related to a story by Doc Wilkins, who told me on the wall of the library, which again was eliminated with the addition, there was to be a marble sculpting there, and they commissioned a sculptor for that wall, and the Board of Governors rejected it because it was too classical, because the library was the first modernistic structure on the campus. The sculptor, they rejected it. The sculptor sued. The settlement was they had to pay the sculptor. Rutgers kept the marble slab, but no other sculpting could go on that wall. So they planted pyracantha on it. So I remember the pyracantha as an undergraduate. But if Doc Wilkins hadn't related that story to us, that would have never been recorded in history and completely forgotten. So just those little pieces of Alexander Library struck me.
So my perspective, by the way, your question, which ones did you like? It's like which child is your favorite on that? Actually, not a picture per se. The orthophoto maps, I think, um, really opened my eyes. And actually, one of them showing the center line of College Avenue going straight into the Bush campus and to Waxman. I mean, I had no idea. The aerials, I thought, really, the then and now aerials, the
Uh-huh.
picture speaks 1,000 words. Well, those spoke quite a few thousand on that. Things I was not aware of. Bleecker Place on the Nielsen campus. Who knew? There was a street there. Actually, we have pictures of cars parked there, etc. With second, what Jim mentioned on the New Jersey Garden. Who knew? Who knew? And so on. So we're proud of the pictures, and actually it was a sense if we don't bring it together, no one else is going to do this. So we're happy we had the opportunity.
That's great. David, you mentioned surprises in the research process. If you're doing it right, you're always surprised by something you find, right? So what really threw you for a loop when you were like, "Wow, I had no idea."
Okay, first there was so much I did not know. I've been working here half a century on that, so I have to acknowledge that. Um, I guess there were facets that I hadn't fully appreciated the episodic nature of of the building. It happened in waves. Okay, the planned and not so planned, how buildings came about, the change. I mean, at one time Rutgers needed a building, Rutgers would build the building. And now, you have the public-private partnerships, like for
Hmm.
instance with DEFCO and the construction of the Honors College and the new academic building.
Yep.
I guess that continues. We don't have it in the book, but continues, with the Helix, etc. On that. So just like it's hard to pick which pictures were best, it's hard to identify which surprises were most revealing.
Jim, I would imagine it's hard to surprise you. What surprised you?
A number of the early buildings well, not so early, certainly into the 20th century, uh, were actually done by architects, architects who really had national and international acclaim. One of them was Henry Janeway Hardenberg,
Uh-huh.
uh, and he was the great great grandson of the first president of Rutgers. And he was hired to do Geological Hall and the Kirkpatrick Chapel and Library. And it sounds great great grandson of that, designing two buildings on Queens. A little bit of nepotism in that situation. Well, it turned out what he did was the Dakota apartment building in New York City, which was the first luxury rental building and now one of the most famous co ops where John Lennon lived. He did the Plaza Hotel in New York City. He
Wow.
did the Willard Hotel in Washington, D.C. He did the Princeton Stadium. And the like. And we had no idea that he had been that famous an architect. Another one was Louis Ayres, who was a 19, 1896 electrical engineering graduate from the College of Engineering. And he did all of the Neo Georgian buildings on the Rutgers campus. But he also did the Department of Commerce building in Washington,
Oh,
D.C., now the Herbert Hoover building. But at the time, it was the largest building ever constructed in Washington. And he also did uh, one of the architects of the Federal Triangle and the
yep.
Federal Reserve Bank of New York City. So Rutgers has this tradition of having superb architects in the 19th and the first half of the 20th century. That's not to say the current architects aren't good, but those were really exceptional individuals.
Yeah, many of those buildings that you've mentioned, I've been in Department of Commerce, the Plaza Hotel, and such, so I know exactly what you're
Yeah.
talking about. Um, so, David, earlier you talked about how research, it doesn't always go according to plan, and it seems to me from looking at the book and from talking to both of you that Rutgers evolution, for all of our pride in planning, has not always gone to plan, and that there have been random developments that occurred along the way. Can you guys speak to that a little bit?
Sure, I'll do a little bit and then turn it over to David. Uh, One of them, I think, is at several stages there were distinct plans made. Uh, Several by Harlan Bartholomew, who was another, he wasn't a Rutgers engineering graduate. Uh, he dropped out in 1909 because he didn't have enough money to pay his tuition. And he became the first municipal city planner in the United States and then created one of the largest planning consulting firms in the country. And he did one plan, several plans for a centralized campus out along Route 1 didn't exist. That was College Farm. So
Mhm.
uh, his idea was, and he did a lot of metrics in terms of future Rutgers expansion. Uh, and he saw the fragmentation that existed. Uh, and again, this is over a century ago, and we still have the fragmentation issue today. You had a separate women's college in one geographic location, a men's college, and a school of agriculture. His plan was to bring them all together in one location. Obviously, it was too much for the board of trustees to handle a concept like that. So he did develop some other plans and the like for College Avenue, but none of the buildings subsequently followed his plan. It was like it was put on a shelf, and then when they had money for a building, oh, let's put it here, let's put it there. And David mentioned the center line of College Avenue. That was another Louis Ayres plan. And the initial plan uh, was to move all the science activities from today's Voorhees Mall to a new science campus, subcampus on today's Bush campus. And Waxman was the linkage where you extended the College Avenue center line and center line the building on it. And they had a great plan, which was on a ridge line, a crescent. And along that crescent would be a whole series of Neo Georgian buildings overlooking today's golf course. Two of the buildings were built, chemistry and microbiology. And then the plan was completely forgotten as all the science activities were located in the 60s and the like. So that's always a problem of creating a plan and then sticking with it, because decision makers change and they have their own ideas of where they would want buildings and the like, and ignore some of the work that went on before.
So
Great.
I would just add to that the budget has often been an issue. I mean, it really starts with Old Queens. You know, there was ornamentation and other facets of that building that were planned and just weren't done. They didn't have the resources. I guess it's also the opportunistic. You know, Rutgers becomes a land grant college. Well, now we can do some buildings.
Mm-hmm.
New Jersey passes this a special tax credit if you develop near transit hub tax credits, and that helps fund the honors college. You know, things you wouldn't think of those linkages.
Mm-hmm.
The new academic building, et cetera, et cetera. So it's you plan, and then you life and reality hits.
Yeah, that's true in many spheres of life. So the book is called Rutgers Then and Now, but I want to end by sort of looking forward as well. In going through this and in looking at the history, one of the prime values of looking at history is telling us about today and moving forward. What lessons are there, if any, for Rutgers in particular, as we look to the next decades?
Well, one area which David put a lot of time into uh, was questioning the physical needs in an information age economy, in a mobile information age
Hmm.
economy, uh, and where you have distance learning, distance classrooms, where you have Zoom, where you have all types of ways of communicating that you don't have to do daily face to face communication. So it raises questions about uh, the uh, maintenance of existing space, and what about new space? And again, when you when you require a new space, you probably have to issue a bond issue and the
Hmm.
like. An alternative to that, which Rutgers has been following the last decade or so, is renting existing buildings that are not physically directly on the campus, whether they're in downtown New Brunswick, such as the School of Social Work moved to Albany Street Plaza. Uh, the planning and facilities and operations moved out to a suburban office building in Piscataway because budget wise, it was just too easy to rent space rather than going through a 5 year planning and construction period. So I think it's a lot of uncertainty going forward about how universities are going to evolve. We don't have a secure roadmap yet.
So I would add on some further lessons going forward. So you have the expression town gown separate. Well, some of that separation has lessened. You just look at the bookstore. You know, the bookstore used to be in the heart of the College Avenue campus. Then they dipped their toe in the water and they built a parking garage right by the train station. And now we have the bookstore there. And of course, the latest permutation is the Barnes and Noble bookstore right in the heart of the downtown by Gateway Transit Village. You know, just think of us, Bloustein and Mason Gross.
Hmm.
You know, we've moved, you know, and deliberately have moved, to the heart of the downtown. Now that offers both opportunities. Okay, it has its own pressures. You know, there's an expression, studentification, as students move into, or a large number of students move into, neighborhoods around universities. It raises housing costs. It has other impacts on that. I think looking forward, more attention to preservation. I mean, if you look at the College Avenue campus, almost every building in some way would qualify to go on the National Register of Historic Places,
Hmm.
because of age and people associated with it and the architecture. Well, Rutgers and other universities, we have to think more about that and maybe how you could capture that as a potential revenue source. Can you use tax credits? As you go forward, you have limited university funds. Just like the transit hub credit was used, you wouldn't think of that being used in the heart of the campus for the honors college and the new academic building. I think looking at too much of college campuses have been devoted to parking.
Uh-huh.
How do we get past that? And actually, if you look at College Avenue, it used to have both sides had parking, and you bike there under peril. So I think we have to think about that on that. And I would also second what Jim was referring to. With COVID, uh, do we continue to just build like we did,
Hmm.
a large auditorium rather than smaller spaces? How do you capitalize on hybrid? Why does everything have to be on the college campus itself? Very much more broadly, where office work is done on that. You have hybrid arrangements. So there's a lot of change that will happen and challenges that will happen. But I guess when you look at what Rutgers has accomplished in 2.5 centuries, I'm kind of confident we'll at least muddle through.
Excellent. A lot of the challenges you two mentioned, the hybridization of higher education, the parking and and cars rather than bikes or scooters. These are challenges that are not just Rutgers, but are higher educations in general. It's been a fascinating discussion. Thanks to both of you so much for coming on.
Well, it's great to be here.
Nice. Thank you.
Also, big thank you to our producer, Tamara Swedberg, and to Karen Olson. Happy holidays to everyone, and we will see you in January with another season of talks from experts at the Bloustein School. Have a wonderful and safe holiday, everyone.